A brisk wind cut through Aachen that morning, sliding over the ancient cobbles like a cool breath from the past. Outside the cathedral, a small boy puffed visible clouds, his gaze fixed on the bronze figure looming above him. Charlemagne, that grand ruler, Europe's supposed father. He did not know every story, only that every winter his grandfather brought him here, knelt by the wrought iron doors, and murmured, "This is where everything nearly changed." Nearly. In this timeline, Charlemagne received the imperial crown on Christmas 800, the honor administered by Pope Leo III. It was a daring act, a forced wedding of Rome's dim legacy and the rising strength of the Frankish realm. Yet the flame born that day never spread far or long. After the emperor's death, his realm splintered. Sons, then grandsons, waged trifling battles, ripping the territory into fragments that would later mesh into modern Europe. Once again, the Roman vision dimmed, reduced to textbooks, relics, and prayers whispered next to dusty altars. But what if that pivotal event had never come about? What if, in that delicate surge of optimism, Charlemagne had chosen differently? The story starts with his only son, Louis the Pious. In our familiar narrative, Louis failed to keep the sprawling realm intact. Yet, in this alternate scene, Charlemagne glimpsed the peril sooner. He understood that three-way partitions would doom the state, turning it into little more than a shared estate. So he rewrote the succession law. He proclaimed that one sole heir would inherit the whole empire, no splits, no kingdom carved for each brother. The magnates grumbled. Rumors of revolt drifted through the court. Still, Charlemagne stood his ground. No longer merely a Merovingian king, he self-styled a Roman emperor, and emperors did not divide their circlets. He prepared Louis not as a pampered royal, but as a true Caesar. He dispatched him to Ravenna, ordered him to tread the ancient Via Appia, memorize Cicero and Marcus Aurelius, and master the lingua franca of power. When Charlemagne breathed his last in 814, Louis' elevation was more than a rite, it marked the revival of an epochal dream. Over the following decades the empire did not splinter, it knitted together more tightly than before. Roads were surveyed and paved, Latin took over the court and the books of law. Church and state, though formally distinct, leaned on each other like two sturdy columns. The old Roman code was dusted off, enlarged, and used in place of the tribal rules of Franks and Lombards. Aqueducts, bridges, and forts were mended across Italy, into Gaul, over the Rhine, and even into Saxon and Dane lands. By the 10th century the empire had peeled Iberia from Moorish hands, not with swords but through unhurried talks, wedding contracts, and quiet trade clout. Towns swelled, schools opened early and shut late, ancient halls of study, thought lost, received fresh students. From the Bosporus, Constantinople watched the resurging West and preferred partnership to rivalry. For the first time in centuries the Eastern and Western empires moved in concert, not as equals, perhaps, but as cousins who at last recalled their common blood. Remarkably, the early Renaissance already flashed in the empire. By the 1100s, paint and inquiry were thriving side by side. Arabic texts streamed into imperial libraries and were translated in classrooms from Toledo to Cologne. Paper supplanted costly parchment. Trade surged. The realm stretched from the Atlantic to the Danube, from the Baltic to Sicily. Yet this brilliance rested not on swords but on steady law, on civic unity, on the daring notion that civil life might aim for culture instead of mere survival, that rule might calm fear. By the 1500s, while most Europe was trapped in bloody confessional wars, what remained of Charlemagne's empire? The Roman Commonwealth hosted councils where Protestants and Catholics wrestled with doctrine, not daggers. The Reformation arose, but not as a tier. It was discussed, woven in, and no 30 years were followed, nor a Spanish Inquisition. Thinkers such as Giordano Bruno were not burned. Long before the Age of Conquest, the Americas were known but only loosely mapped. Settlement moved slowly because fractured crowns in Europe spent as much time squabbling at home as they did seeking gold overseas. With no epic race for territory, no sovereign felt obliged to order a blood-soaked march across the new lands. Instead, envoys of the old Mediterranean republic negotiated with indigenous councils, built modest trading posts and early schools. Did the arrangement work for everyone? Certainly not. Yet, by the standards of later empires, it felt noticeably kinder and undeniably more pragmatic. By the 20th century the planet looked altogether different. An enormous, mostly cooperative Roman-European federation sprawled over almost every continent. Power struggles still flared. No arrangement can erase greed or ambition, but the bloc contained those flames, preventing a true world war. There were no muddy trenches, no young men from France and Germany ordered to slaughter one another for imaginary borders. Consequently, Figures like Hitler never rose, nor did atrocities such as the Holocaust darken the record. The brand of nationalism that so often ignites war never fully formed because most Europeans learned to see themselves first as Romans and only second as anything else. Even now, the Roman Commonwealth endures, its provinces knit together under one seat of power, Nova Roma, a polished metropolis of marble and glass rising on the ruined foundations of ancient Rome. Latin serves as the world's common tongue. It is no dusty relic from Caesar's day, but a living, evolving speech. English survives as a provincial patois, mostly heard in distant Britannia. The Senate endures, its members chosen by voters from every corner. The term citizen is treated as sacred, not as subject or servant, but as a free bearer of Roman law. Culturally, we would be different people. Our values, justice, reason, dignity would not be surviving scraps of antiquity. They would be breathed awake every day, strengthened by centuries of stability, shared memory, and an empire kept not by fear, but by promise. Standing in Aachen, the boy's grandfather finally broke the silence. His voice came low and weary. "I fought in a war," he said, "not in this world, in the real one, the one that shattered because Rome never returned. I saw men die with terror in their eyes because no one taught us we belonged to something larger, that we were Roman." He knelt, brushing snow from a mossy slab beside the cathedral. If Charlemagne had truly grasped his moment, if had acted on it, we might never have found ourselves patching Europe together from wreckage. The boy said nothing. He studied the statue again, now with clear-eyed comprehension. Charlemagne was no mere monarch, he was the junction where fate nearly pivoted. He was the handle on a door history almost turned. And sometimes, when wind falls still and night stretches, you can almost hear Roman sandals pacing through time, not memory, but the reverberation of a realm that might have existed. A realm that still breathes in our dreams.